Hey, what's up? This is Sean from Lilitone, and this is the SXC-1, a new handheld portable sampler from Casio. Let's check it out. So I've been using Casio's original sampler, the Casio SXC-1, for the last 30 years or so. So I was really excited when I heard the rumors that they were going to maybe come out with a new sampler. In this video today, I'd like to go over a couple of things, like what is the SXC-1? What all can you do with it? And finally, how does it compare to other samplers on the market today? Wait. But before all that, let's do a funny little experiment. So recently, I've been wearing this Casio F84W watch that my friend retrofitted with a band that you wear in the sauna. And it has this really interesting little beep sound. So I wanted to sample this sound into the SXC-1. Yeah, you can hear here. Just one sound's pretty interesting, but I copied it over and changed the pitch, so I put it up 2 semitones, and then 2 more after that, and then 1 more after that. So now we can get a melody. I also made it 1 octave lower. By doing this, it can play the melody from one of Lilitone songs. Now I also sampled this beep into the SK1 so that I could play it as chords. And I put those chords, as well as some drums from the SK1, into a sequence here. Now the SXC1 has a really cool sequencer built in. Let me show you. Go into here. If you long hold one of these buttons, it goes to sequence mode. Hit OK. Then I put the chords and also drums from the SK1 into it. We can get like this. Right. So I can play on top of it. Alright, if you like that, you should listen to the real song too. Maybe Knox is better than Beefs, I don't know, but this is the kind of fun stuff that you can do with this little sampler. Okay, but before we get too ahead of ourselves, let's get into the specifications of the SXC-1. Casio explains the SXC-1 as a handheld standalone sampler that's super portable with a playful design that references retro gaming consoles. It has 16 pads that you can use for finger drumming or triggering loops. It also has a D-pad and ABC buttons, kind of like old games too. There's a 1.3-inch OLED that displays waveforms and patterns. And I have to say, it is a really nice size. It fits super comfortably in your hand, and it only weighs 315 grams, which is pretty amazing. On top of that, it also has a built-in microphone, as well as jacks for headphones, line out, audio in, and then 2 USB ports for data and power. So it can be powered by USB, but it can also be powered by 4 AAA size batteries. And one thing I think is really cool is that you don't need any SD cards or anything. It has 64 gigabytes of internal memory. The sampling engine supports 16-bit 48K audio formats like WAV, Mp3 and Flac, with up to 15 minutes per sample. I have no idea why you would need a 15-minute sample on here, but maybe it's nice to have the option. It also has a 16-step sequencer with up to 8 bars per sequence and the capacity to store up to 50 sequence banks. It has some built-in effects too, like filters, delay, and a bit crusher that you can control with these spinning dials. And finally, there's also a companion app that lets you move and back up samples easily, program sequences on a bigger screen, and do firmware updates. It has the ability to do beat sync too, which allows all of your loops to mesh together rhythmically really easily. For example, this is one of the Casio's packs. Then we'll start with this one. Switch over here. Easy to see. Let's try to make a beat out of some stuff that you might just have laying around. So for this example, I'm going to use the Delphonics times Rollbond notebook because look at this. The color scheme is like almost absolutely perfect. And then to keep it up with the green, I put some green juice, Algier, in this mug from my friend's record shop. So to do it, let's go to a new bank that doesn't have any other sounds in there, starting with a clean slate. And then you want to make sure that you have your recording part set to mic because I'm using this internal mic right now. And think about what would be a good sound. Maybe this pen clicking. So to do it, you hit record, and then you can choose your sampling mode. I'm going to leave it on auto trigger. What auto trigger does is that it won't start recording until it hears a sound come in. So I'm going to hit the pad I want to sample to. It's waiting. And when it hears the sound, it starts. Oh yeah, there we go. Now I can also edit this. If I hit the edit button, I can go here and get the start and end time right where I want it. Yeah, there we go. That's perfect. Okay, what other kind of sounds should we get? Maybe, hey, that would be good. Record here. And then record another one here. Let's edit that. We might need a kind of like a bass, like a kick sound. Just hitting the table is pretty good usually. So record. Oh, deep. All right, let's edit. We'll cut off the bits we don't need. And then for snare, I wonder what sound good. That's not much of a snare, is it? Let's try it. Record. Nah, I don't like that one so much, so I'm gonna hit delete. The one I want to do, then it's like delete selected pad. Yeah, okay. Oh, I know. I'll rip a piece of paper. How about this? So record. Oh yeah, that's a snare for sure. Okay, then let's edit and make it really short. Okay, that sounds pretty good. Wait, do we need a little bit more sounds? We need like a hi-hat, right? I'll just do it with my mouth. Record, here we go. Here we go. All right. I started recording from where I said, here we go. All right, that sounds good. Close it down here. All right, that sounds pretty all right. We can also do a version where we record and we do this thing called resampling. So I want to resample to 4, and I want to copy this one, this hi-hat sound. Now it's copied it over to here. So now if we edit it, we can start this, and then I'm going to change the pitch. I want to make this lower. All right, let's make a sequence with these sounds. So if I long hold one of these buttons, so I'll do C here, and then choose the sequence select blank. Yeah, I think that sounds good. I have a blank one right here. And now I can draw in the notes that I want it to play by scrolling through here on the grid and then hitting A. So for this is 1 was the kick, which I made by tapping on the table. I'm gonna put that on every 4th beat. And then the snare, which is made by the ripping the paper. Let's put that here and here. We'll have that come 2 times. And then I'm going to put these kind of hats a little bit off here. This is going to be the most simple 4 on the floor beat in the world, just to get an idea of how it works. All right, and then let's hear it. You can also record into it. So I'll hit. And if we want to change the tempo, just hit edit and then BPM. So we can slow it down or speed it up. Now, of course, this machine can do much more than sampling notebooks and mugs, but there was a reason I wanted to show you that. I think it kind of gets into the ethos of like what sampling things around you can make your everyday life feel like. It's a bit fun, right? Searching for sounds. So this is the SK1. I found this one in a thrift store when I was really young, and it totally changed my approach to music. I'll just show you. So you can sample in your voice. But on this one, you can play melodies with and chords too. One of the things that was really fun about this one was to hear how a sound changes when it gets slower. Or gets higher. Like, hello. Hello. I think this machine has some of that playfulness, but not quite as much as this had. So hopefully there's a way in the future where they can bring some of this, maybe controlling the pads chromatically with a MIDI keyboard or something like that. But I think that kind of gets into the ethos of this one. So I want to do a little bit of comparison with this and the other samplers on the market. If you're already a competent musician and you feel like you know a bit about sampling already, I think I would recommend going ahead and going with one of the bigger machines like a SP404, MPC sample, or a KO2. This one is great. The size of it's super cool. It's so light compared to this. But at the cost of like what you can do with your sounds, this you can really mangle sounds in a totally different way with something like this. However, if you're just starting off and you want to get too overwhelmed, it might be good to start off with something like this, you know? And then you kind of graduate and work your way up, because I have had some friends who started off on a bigger machine and it was too overwhelming for them, and then they just gave up. Another thing I thought about that could be cool is if you're like a YouTuber or a streamer or maybe even a teacher in a classroom, having things like sound effects built in, like built in here. So, you know, like you can trigger it really easily, this kind of stuff. I think this is really good for that kind of stuff. You can make beats and like search for sounds all around you, but you could also have like a quick, easy way to say the right answer in the classroom. I think kids would eat that up. They would love it. Okay, so the verdict is, I think this is pretty cool. This is a good first step into Casio coming back into sampling. Now, when I saw an interview with one of the designers, he said that the idea for this machine was dareremo tanashimeru, which means anyone can enjoy it. And I think they did a pretty good job of that, because I passed it off to my daughter just to see what she would do, like tapping around on it, and she was having a blast like that. However, another part of the interview, he said that he's really looking forward to hearing from users, like Casio users and stuff. And as a big time Casio fan, you know, the first Lelotone record ever had a Casio SK1 sound on it. I'm wearing a Casio watch. I use a Casio, where is it? I use a Casio calculator. Actually, I don't really use a calculator that much, but look how cool this one is. There are some things I think they can improve, and some of them might even be possible with just firmware updates. Now, it's cool that we have these effects built in. There's a bit crusher, phaser, flanger, and filter. But I don't think that you need a flanger and a phaser both. Like, I've almost never used either one of those effects in my entire life. But one thing that both me and most every other person in the world use is reverb. And I think it's kind of crazy that there's no reverb built into here. Maybe there's a way in a firmware update to change out one of the flangers or phasers for a reverb. Another thing would be that when you go in to edit your sample, to have an option where you can reverse it. It's so fun whenever you record something, you hear what it sounds like backwards, especially if you're doing this with like little kids. They're going to love it. You really kind of like a whole new feeling of an atmosphere of sounds when you hear them backwards and also at other pitches. So the third thing I'm thinking is if there's a way to make your samples play at other pitches. Right now you can do it by copying it over and over, how I did on the Watch song, but it's pretty time intensive. Maybe there's a way that you can use one of the two USB data ports on the back and play it by a MIDI keyboard or something like that. Other things. I think it's cool that there's an app, but the thing that I really like about this one is that you don't have to use an app. Because if you're just looking at apps, there's already a really amazing sampler called Koala Sampler on the iPad, which can do everything this does and more. But you're going to be stuck using the iPad, right? And I think the idea of having this right now is like if you're going to pass it off to a child or maybe in a classroom, that like you're not just giving another screen to look at. It's tactile, you can feel it, but it is almost the size of like a giant iPhone, you know? So I'm trying to use this as much as possible without using the app. I know the app is good because you can see your sequences bigger. It's easier to copy your sounds around and edit them quickly. But it's, for me, the thing that makes this special is that you don't have to use an app. Also, I heard that they're preparing a website where you can download samples for this, but that it's kind of leaning into AI, which I think is kind of not cool at all. It's sort of the opposite of the ethos I have in my mind of how Casio has always been. Like, it feels really handmade and exciting and exploratory. So I would caution them to not go too far in that direction, because for me, that sounds like the opposite of actually making sounds. That's what makes something like this fun, is going outside, exploring, getting a sound and mangling it up, not just, typing it in. And the last thing is, I think that this is a good first step in the new direction. So I mentioned earlier, like, it reminds me of the SK1 a little bit, right? But the SK1 felt like such a magical tool when I first found it. And this feels really fun, but maybe I'm a bit jaded because I'm older now, but it doesn't have the exact magic that this had for me. Like some older Casio things, even this, I bought this old Casio calculator. It's a calculator that can play melodies. This kind of like silly, fun, playful stuff is great. And this is playful, but I think there might be some kind of new thing that they could add on to it. Casio, if you're ever around Nagoya, please feel free to come by my studio. I'd love to have a long talk with you about this kind of stuff. I have so many of your old keyboards around and stuff. I think there's some things we could think about that could be really, really exciting in the future. But in conclusion, I do think this is a really cool instrument and a good first step for Casio getting back into sampling. It's the Casio SXC-1, and thanks for checking this out. All right, later.